right. And of course, I didn't think to check the audio before I started. Testing 1, 2. Yeah, we're good. All right. Chat, we are back for the very final few moments of day 9 of Real Housewives of Canton, covering over the murder plot. Hopefully we're going to spin through that pretty quickly, and then I've already queued up day 10. Fingers crossed it loads automatically. We'll see exactly what happens. But let's get stuck straight into it, shall we? Shall we? Shall we? Of course not. Why on earth would that work? Oh, of course. That's why. I are moron. I not have correct tab selected. Well, apparently it makes a difference.
Specifically, do we?
Specifically, no.
Okay. Then those solo cups with no lids
Hello, Glennis.
were
Doing
placed into a bag, right?
That's correct.
You
Ready to
said
get home,
on
man.
direct examination that this was a brown paper bag, right?
It is. Stop and Shop, I believe.
And you said that
Stop and shop.
that Stop and Shop bag is, other than having the words Stop and Shop on it versus evidence on it, basically the one and the same thing.
Same dimensions, made out of the same materials, yes.
Right. But with an evidence bag, you know exactly where it came from and who's handling it.
And what's been in
Not
it?
necessarily.
Comes from a manufacturer
Pork rinds.
whose job it is to secure those bags so that they are not mishandled, so they can have some sort of bona fides that they're clean and ready to accept evidence in, say, for instance, I don't know, the investigation of a homicide of a police officer.
Okay.
Important stuff, right?
We're not at a homicide of a police officer at this point.
I'm just talking about evidence bags in general. Evidence bags in general.
It
In other
doesn't
words,
matter
I'm trying to think of some of the most important investigations around. The manufacturers of those evidence bags manufacture them and send them in a way so that their bona fides, the provenance of those bags is maintained, correct, and protected.
That's the way they ship them, yes.
Right. And Kenton PD pays extra money for.
I don't actually care if it was at the point of homicide of a police officer or not. It should have been the standards apply irrespective. You can't just go, oh, this is probably going to be nothing, so I can cut corners in the investigation. I can cut corners in how I handle the evidence because, oh, God forbid, shit blows up in your face.
For those bags. For that very purpose.
I'm sure they do, yes.
You mentioned almost tongue in cheek, look, except for the price,
Yeah.
they're probably pretty close.
Yes.
There's a reason that there's a price difference, right?
What would the reason? What's the reason?
Well, it's not the shop, I can go pay 10 cents
Yeah.
for that bag, because I don't really give a hoot where it's been or who's handling it. Right? It's got my milk and my eggs in it. Really don't care.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they price it because of how they package it. I don't have any knowledge of that.
Well, you're the one that mentioned the price. I'm just
Oh,
trying to
no,
make
no,
a
no.
point.
Yeah, I
There's
agree
a
with
reason.
you on that.
I'm sorry, we're speaking over each other. Okay.
I apologize.
I'm sorry, Mr. Downer, you gotta wait.
Yep.
There's a reason. My point is, there's a reason. Right?
Yes.
That evidence bags are more expensive because there is a way they're manufactured and it's taken care of, and Canton PD is willing to pay that extra price like every other one.
What hours are it?
Because of that, correct? All right. So they're not quite the same, are they?
No.
Those solo cups were placed in the evidence bag uncovered.
Yes.
The evidence bag was then placed in Sergeant Lank's vehicle.
It was closed and Sergeant Lang transported it to his vehicle. Yes.
Okay. When you say closed, you mean the top of it was rolled up?
Correct.
Or folded over?
Correct.
Okay. It wasn't forensically sealed.
Not at that time, no.
There was no evidence tape that went on it.
Not at that time, no.
Matter of fact, the cups were still open and could slosh around. Assume they melted.
Yes,
There's liquid blood and liquid water, like
that's correct.
snow.
That's correct.
Ugh, sloshing around.
And you indicated that
That
those
sounds
were,
nasty.
at least you believe, those were placed in an evidence locker, temporary evidence locker, correct?
No, the blood samples were put in a refrigerated unit.
My mistake. I thought the refrigerator was the temporary storage.
Get it
locker.
right,
It's different?
Jackson?
Yes, lockers are not refrigerated. That's where the glass would go into a locker.
Okay. This was placed into an evidence refrigerator.
That's correct.
That was to maintain the integrity of the sample, the biological sample inside the cups, correct?
That's correct.
You have an evidence log of that.
I don't know.
You've never
Of course
seen
not.
an evidence log indicating that those were actually put into a refrigerated evidence log.
I removed them myself, so I know they were in the refrigerator unit.
When did you remove them?
Yeah,
On
but you don't know
February
whether or not
1st.
they were tampered with.
We're talking about January 29th. They were taken to Canton PD by Officer Lang, Sergeant Lang, on January 29th.
By
He was
strict
asking-
definition, chain of
That's a
custody,
foundational question.
this shit should have been thrown out anyway.
Does Canton PD maintain something called evidence logs?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not the evidence officer.
No.
There is, it's
So
all
why were you doing
computerized.
the evidence after it was
So
retrieved?
like I explained earlier, when they do get logged in, the officer puts the description of the property, hits the space bar, and the computer generates an evidence number.
Right. And that evidence number is associated with just that piece of evidence.
Just that piece of evidence, correct?
And every time it's checked out or put back in, there is a log created, correct?
Yeah, they do it by computer, yes.
It's a digital fingerprint.
Correct.
All right. I mean, you're a former narco specialist, right?
Mhm.
You did narcotics for years, right?
I did.
Drugs, about the most sensitive thing out there, right? I mean, you get a bottle of fentanyl. You're not just going to set it on
Of course.
the evidence subject's desk. You're going to make sure that damn thing gets logged exactly how it's supposed to, correct?
Of course.
Because it needs to have a trace of where it goes and who touches it and who has access to it, correct?
That is correct.
You've never seen an evidence log for these items that were taken from 34 Fairview and supposedly put into, well, not supposedly because you took them out, and
That's correct.
ultimately went into a refrigerated evidence log.
Yeah, I wouldn't have access to the evidence log. Our evidence room is a very strict process.
Then why did you have access to the evidence in the first place if you don't have access to the log? You can sit there and go, it's very strictly monitored. So how the fuck were you the one that went in and took it out and whatever else? And why was there not a log kept of that? You are making the defense's argument for them, dipshit. It's clearly not as strict and accurate and professional as you keep making it out to be. Fuck, what did I do?
Process. There's only two people that can even have access to the permanent once it goes into permanent evidence. And it's the admin sergeant that changes the custody when it comes out for court, if an item has to come out for court, or if it has to be transported to another agency, or if an officer needs it removed from evidence for further inspection, the admin sergeant would take care of that.
Why were you touching it
Mr.
then?
Jackson,
If
you're
you
not going to
wasn't removed
finish
from the
today,
brief,
right?
No, I'm
In 2 minutes?
Two questions, and I'm also.
All right, 2 questions.
Thank you. That's the way it's supposed to work, correct?
Yes,
But you've never, as you sit here, you've never seen an evidence log determining where that blood went and who was handling it between January 29th and February 1st.
I have never seen an evidence log.
That's all I had, Robert, at least at this time.
All right, Lieutenant, we're going to have you come back tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Your
The
Honor.
jury files out. You can file.
Thank you.
So jurors, that's it for today. The same 4 cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, read anything about it, please disregard and let us know tomorrow, and be very careful with your social media use. All right, see you tomorrow.
All rise for the court, please. Jurors, close your notebooks, follow me.
Goodbye.
End day 9. Oh great, now it's going to take time to load. Well, that got my blood pressure up a little bit. And of course, we start the day with a sidebar. Also, just very quickly, if you haven't already seen it, Charlie D'Angelo on X, amazing musician, artist, videographer, all that sort of jazz. He did up a very gorgeous is the wrong word. He did an incredible song that is, he said, was basically an homage to Jeff, and was not expecting to get emotional in the office today. It is absolutely an amazing song. I wholeheartedly recommend you go and listen to that at some point. I think I listened to it like 3 or 4 times. Come on, Bev. You're killing me. You're killing me. You're really killing me. Oh, listen to the ice water pour.
Into this case. Yes. Everyone said yes or no. Independent research or investigation into this case.
Yes.
Everyone said yes or not affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Everyone said no or should be. Thank you. Do we have Lieutenant Gallagher again, please?
Sir, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. Good morning.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Gallagher, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us again. I want to ask you a quick question about what we talked about yesterday concerning your search at the scene. If we could go back to that, when you engaged the.
I was so sure he was going to say we could call it that.
During the time that you were removing materials in and around the area of the flagpole going out to the, I think you called it the berm, B-E-R-M, the berm, the curb.
Yes, that was at the street. There was a 6-inch Cape Cod berm. Yes.
Okay, and that led straight to the asphalt of the street, correct?
It's basically a curbing. It's
Okay.
where the property line, the grass, the lawn meets the street.
And you were searching the area where you believed Mr. O'Keefe's body to have been found, all the way out toward that curb or berm area, correct?
Yeah, we did not go out to the berm. We did about approximately 6 by 6, 7 by 7, about 50 square feet.
50
area.
square feet. Okay, fair enough. But you did say at some point, I think on direct examination, you said that you exposed the berm
Yes.
just to give you some orientation as to where the curb was, where
Expose
the
the berm.
street was.
And if it was possible, he may have tripped and fallen. Yes.
Okay. You did not recover or see a hat, a man's hat,
No,
berm
sir.
black in
exposed.
color, like baseball style hat.
No hat. No, sir.
You did not see or recover a man's shoe.
No, sir.
And you said you searched for the area in that 50 square foot area by removing materials, moving the snow, getting down to all the way down to the lawn.
Yes.
Okay. You did not see a single piece of bright red plastic taillight material either, did you?
No, sir. Not in that area.
As a matter of fact, you didn't see 46 pieces of taillight material, either clear or bright red plastic, in any part of the area that you searched.
No, the only thing we discovered was the blood sampling in the glass. That is correct.
Speaking of the glass, that's a good segue. You found that piece of broken drinking glass that you brought in and showed the jurors yesterday, correct?
That's correct.
Did you search?
There wasn't that much snow that fell, and this guy reckons he went along with a snowblower pushing snow around. Where the fuck was the tail light, Brennan? Where the fuck were the tail light pieces? Oh, I know. They were in Proctor's pocket.
the house at all to determine whether or not there was any matching glass in the home?
No, I did not.
You testified yesterday that you looked around when you were in the house. This is the second time you're at the location. So you went back with Sergeant Lank. I want to orient you to that time. That's when you actually entered the home for the first time of Brian Albert. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And you indicated that you did look around the family room, the kitchen, and you didn't see any signs of a struggle or anything like that.
No, sir.
I asked you that exact question about a year ago at another proceeding. Do you recall that colloquy between the two of us?
Yes.
And at that time, I asked you, did you look around the house for any sign of a struggle or a fight? And your answer was no. Do you remember that?
Yes, I think that's out of context. I understood that question was, did I wander the house to look for any sign of a struggle? I believe you asked me if I asked me about a bulkhead and things of that nature.
Okay.
As I stood there, I have observations I can see.
Right.
So I think it's just a miscommunication on what type of search.
Fair
or
enough.
What type of observation.
Fair enough. Let's clear that up right now then. Mr. Gallagher, with regard to your the time that you were inside the residence, you did not seek to or ask permission to look around any place other than where you happen to be standing, which is right inside that front door of the family room, sort of adjacent to the kitchen area, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
You didn't walk into any adjacent rooms?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, you didn't walk into any, you didn't search the kitchen area?
I did not. No, sir.
You didn't look through the cabinets or anything like that?
Any
Absolutely not,
investigation
no.
whatsoever?
You didn't look at the glassware?
Absolutely not. No.
You didn't go down to the basement? We talked about that previously.
Correct.
And-
No, absolutely not.
Okay. You didn't go out to the garage?
No, sir.
You
Nope.
didn't look around the garage?
Brian Bear, that's because at the moment, the only time that I get myself to stream is while I am in the car, both to and from work, which is why I'm covering the Karen Reed trial twice a day, every day, as much as I can anyway. Most of the time, by the time I get home and get the little one down to bed, I'm too dog tired to stream at the night now. So, but we're hoping things will pick up and change. But for the moment, no. Pretty much every stream is going to be in the car.
No.
Other than walking in and basically where you just described standing while Sergeant Lank was engaged with Miss McCabe, you didn't do anything to search the interior of that house for anything?
No, I wasn't there to search at all.
Okay. You also didn't,
course not.
subsequent
That
to
would be
that,
part of
you
your
didn't
job.
seek or receive a search warrant?
No, I did not.
Okay. You didn't believe that it was necessary, in your mind, it was necessary to seek a search warrant to search the interior of that house?
That's absolutely correct.
You were aware
Why?
at the time that you did go into the house that Sergeant Lank had earlier reported at least the possibility that John O'Keefe may have gotten into a fight, correct?
I don't recall that. We went over options on how he could have come to where he was, and an altercation certainly was one of them.
Okay, so that's fair enough. So an altercation meaning was one of, when you say altercation, that means a physical fight, correct?
Sure.
So that was a possibility in your mind.
Everything was a possibility at that time.
And at that time, you had the information that you found, or Mr. O'Keefe's body was found on the lawn of a residence where there was alcohol, drinking, a party of some sort, or a gathering of some sort just hours earlier, right?
That's correct, but the house had nothing to do with the incident.
At least to your mind.
That's correct, based on the evidence, yes, at that time.
And the evidence at that time was
Thank
simply
you,
your
Brian Bear. Very much
communications
appreciate it.
with.
No, surprisingly, the fuel I'm not as worried about these days. I mean, yes, I'm spending about $40 a day in petrol. I mean, Greta Thunberg would absolutely like to castrate me. But no, surprisingly, it's the Starlink, the internet connection, that is one of the biggest things while I'm streaming anyway. So I've sort of got to try and keep covering over that as part of streaming, because that's about $200 a month. So, but no, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that, and I will put it towards it. But the Starlink itself, based on how much internet I've plowed through while driving in the last month alone, only having covered this trial part of the way through, has already paid for itself. Because if I tried using cellular, oh my God.
Some, but not all, the occupants of the house, including Jennifer McCabe, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
you didn't separate any of the witnesses that were, or any of the occupants that you saw inside the house, or you came across inside the house, for instance, by taking them to the station, putting them in separate rooms so that they couldn't coordinate testimony, things of that nature?
At that time,
At that time.
Ooh,
so
how quickly?
Detective Sergeant Lank was there to speak with Jennifer McCabe only.
Okay. But there were others in the house.
There were others in the house, yes.
I'm just trying to figure out whether or not you took the added step of separating those witnesses, asking those witnesses potentially to join you down at the station, putting them in separate rooms, separating those witnesses. You did not do that.
Not at that time, no.
Okay. At any time, did you?
No, we shortly thereafter, we were removed from the investigation. We removed ourselves from the investigation.
And before you were removed from the investigation, you just left the house after the conversation that Sergeant Lank had with Jennifer McCabe, correct?
Yes, after he took Jennifer McCabe's statement, we left the house, yes.
Is the reason that you didn't seek a search warrant or separate the witnesses or ask any of the potential witnesses to join you down at the station, did that have anything to do with your knowledge the homeowner was a police officer?
Absolutely none. I've actually executed warrants on police officers' houses in the past, including police officers I personally worked with and had to charge some of their children. So that absolutely would not factor into a reason.
And it didn't factor in this case?
Absolutely not.
Sure as shit factored into Bruce's thinking.
Brian Albert was a police officer.
Absolutely not.
He didn't get any special treatment because of that?
Not by me. Absolutely not.
Okay, not by you?
Not.
Okay.
Not
I
by
cannot
me.
speak to my personal knowledge.
Well played.
You were aware that, and you indicated yesterday, that the reason that Canton PD was removed from the investigation, or at least the interview section of the investigation, was because of a relationship of one of your detectives. You indicated your best detective, Kevin Albert, correct?
That's correct.
Or you gave Mr. Albert, or Detective Albert, very high praise.
He's a very good detective, yes.
And you were his direct supervisor.
I was at one point, yes.
Okay. You're aware that Kevin Albert was disciplined by the Canton Police Department for an incident occurring in July 2022, correct?
I am, yes.
Do you stand by your testimony knowing that Kevin Albert is your best detective, or was your best detective?
Please
He's an
say
excellent
yes.
detective,
Please
yes.
say yes. Ha! So pretty much all your other detectives have had at least one disciplinary proceeding, is what you're saying, or are worse detectives than someone that has been in a disciplinary proceeding. That's fucking funny.
You
I don't think you
indicated
intended to say that, but fuck.
that you contacted your deputy chief, Deputy Chief Kelleher, and ultimately secured some solo cups from Deputy Chief Kelleher across the street, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
You were aware at the time that Deputy Chief Kelleher's house was adorned with a Ring video camera just over the front door, facing out toward the street and facing across the street, which would be facing 34 Fairview, correct?
That is incorrect. He does not have a Ring camera. I know that his system is an Arlo camera, and I have personal knowledge of that because we've discussed cameras because we bought them approximately the same time.
My mistake. Arlo camera, ARLO.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that's still, although it's a different brand, it's still a home personal surveillance camera, correct?
Yes, but
And you're aware that those are motion activated cameras designed for security to capture images of things that may be going on outside the home.
that is correct, yes, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor,
Yes.
briefly?
Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher, would you take a look at that photograph that I just handed you?
Yes,
What's it marked for ID?
It is marked for ID, and Mr. Gallagher, if you could read that for me, so it'd save me a trip up to the stand.
I believe it's a 5, Exhibit 5.
Could it be an S?
It could be an S, yes.
I think it's S, Your Honor.
I apologize.
It is S. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
I recognize the camera in the door.
Okay. Is that a shot of Deputy Chief Gallagher's, sorry.
That's okay. I know what you're asking.
Is this a shot of Deputy Chief Kelleher's front porch?
It appears to be.
Okay. Does that front porch face 34 Fairview, just.
We need a time frame.
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
We need a time frame.
Sure. Did you see that Arlo camera so situated when you went over there on January 29th, 2022?
I knew it was there, yes.
Okay. And is that a fair representation of what the camera looked like and its positioning,
That's
basically its positioning in January of 2022?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, remote's working again.
Did you seek the footage? From that
No, I
camera?
didn't. I know what that camera captures.
Okay. Your Honor, with the court's permission, when we publish, I'd like to mark this as evidence next in order.
Okay?
I may approach.
Yes.
Is it 53?
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, do you recognize this as being the photograph that you just saw, Exhibit 53?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to draw your attention. And by the way, there's one amendment to this photograph. There's a redaction of the address. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to draw your attention to that area right there, which I'm
Yes.
highlighting.
Yes.
What is that?
That is the Arlo camera.
Can you orient the jurors for us, please, to what we're looking
I
at?
think I've just realized
in
it's
this
probably
photograph.
what you
You're
call
looking at a
it.
camera that's angled downward.
And is it the front porch of that residence directly across the street from 34 Fairview?
It is not directly across from 34. It's actually more directly across from 32, so that would be incorrect.
Okay. Is it across the street from 34 generally?
It is, if Lieutenant Kelleher's house is here, 34 is over here across the street.
Okay. Is there a view from that front porch, just generally as you're standing there, if you were to turn 180 degrees and put your back to the door, is there a view of 34 Fairview as well as 32 Fairview?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay. Did you seek, and we can take this down. Did you seek to secure any footage from that Arlo camera
I did not.
from Deputy Chief Kelleher?
I did not.
Did you talk to Deputy Chief Kelleher about that footage?
I don't remember specifically.
Did you ask him whether or not he had reviewed the footage for a determination whether or not it caught any of the incident that may have occurred at or around 34 Fairview on January 29th, the early morning hours of January 29th?
I don't know if I did. I know it would not have,
How do you know it would not have?
because I know what that camera captures.
How do you know what that camera captures?
Because I've picked up packages for Deputy Chief Kelleher in the past. I know it captures his doorstep and a portion of the front lawn.
So you've reviewed the Arlo footage from his
No.
iPhone?
He's just sent me a picture. Can I pick up when he's been on vacation, can I pick up a package on the front step?
Okay, so,
Yes, I've seen it.
so you've seen screenshots that
Sure.
Deputy Chief Kelleher sent you, correct?
I believe so, yes.
But you've never looked at the actual application to see what it might encapsulate or what it might capture generally.
We've compared what we have our cameras set
So
up as.
rather
We
than
communicate,
expecting
we
the
communicate.
possibility, rather than taking the possibility that the evidence may exist, he's completely dismissed it offhand because of his previous prior knowledge. Fuck
About
off.
security out of houses multiple times. I know it captured the front door and a portion of the front lawn.
Do you believe that it would have been best practices to go ahead and secure that footage so we don't have to take anybody's word for it? We could actually look at the footage ourselves.
I didn't do that.
Do you think that would have been best practices to do that, just to have belt and suspenders? So there's no question about whether or not that camera that's facing, at least it's facing directly across the street, might have captured something of interest on the morning of January 29th, 2022.
To me, there was no expectation that it had captured anything, so I didn't think it was practical.
So because of your expectation, you didn't seek the footage and you didn't secure the footage.
Because of my knowledge and expectation, yes.
And you now know that that footage is gone.
I would assume so. I'm not familiar with how long Arlo keeps footage.
So you are familiar enough that you decided that it wasn't important to capture the footage, but you're not familiar enough to know whether or not the footage is actually saved onto the Arlo system?
I don't know anything about, I don't have Arlo cameras, so I don't know anything about
So
the
you
system, but
okay.
I have Blink, so we've compared our systems. So I'm not really sure what you're asking.
So you don't have an Arlo system.
I have Blink, correct?
You're not familiar with how Arlo works, correct?
Correct.
You're not familiar with the total array of where the cameras might capture versus what might be captured on your phone app or that you can say, like, push a button that says packages or people, and it narrows the focus of the camera? Not aware of that?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay. But you would have been aware of that if you had captured the footage and simply said to Deputy Chief Kelleher, I'd like that ring footage for that 24-hour period.
Okay, it's not ring.
I'm sorry, that Arlo footage for a 24-hour period.
Sure.
Yeah.
Arguing over fucking semantics.
Well, let me
as
ask you
well.
this: Did Deputy Chief Kelleher
I didn't
get
do my
any
job.
special
You keep
treatment
calling it a
from
ring
you
camera, so you're wrong.
because he's a police officer?
No.
Did Deputy Chief Kelleher get any special treatment from you because he was your boss?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. You know Brian Higgins.
I do.
How do you know him?
Brian Higgins is a special agent with the ATF.
How long have you known him?
I first became aware of Brian Higgins probably around
I already hated it.
2016, 2017 when I was with the DEA and we were working a Title III investigation, which was a wiretap investigation into gang activity, drug distribution in the Boston, Brockton area. I never had any personal contact with him at that time. He was just an agent in the group I was working for.
Ultimately, did that professional relationship seep into more of a personal relationship as well?
It did. So I think it was 2018 or 2019, the ATF had a satellite office at Canton PD, and he was one of the special agents that was assigned, yes.
So he actually officed in the brick and mortar location of Canton PD?
Yes, he did.
And did he maintain that office all the way through January of 2022?
He did, yes.
And during the course of your interaction with Mr. Higgins, did you become friendly with Mr. Higgins?
I've become friendly with Mr. Higgins, yes. Most of my coworkers I'm friendly with.
Is it safe to say that you socialized at times with Mr. Higgins?
I have, yes.
Okay. You've shared cocktails with Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Shared meals with Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Okay. So it is safe to say that you have both a professional and a personal relationship with Mr. Higgins,
Yes, I do.
and you consider him a good friend.
Yes, I do.
You were aware, Mr. Gallagher, that he was at 34 Fairview on January 29th, those early morning hours, during the course of the time when John O'Keefe went to 34 Fairview.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that
Sure.
question?
You're aware that Mr. Higgins was at 34 Fairview in the home at the time that John O'Keefe went to 34 Fairview on January 29th, 2022.
By the time I became aware of it was afterwards, yes.
Okay. That's what I mean.
Yes,
I know
yes.
you weren't aware of it at the moment, but
Right, okay.
you became aware of it.
Later on, yes.
Okay. When did you become aware of it?
I'm not sure. It was after we were, I'm not really sure.
It was during the time that you were dispatched over to Brian Albert's house to ultimately either begin the investigation or go into the home with Sergeant Lank and interview with people there, correct?
No, that wasn't the time, no.
Didn't you say in a report to Lieutenant Tully that when you went over to Brian Albert's house, that Brian Higgins was not there?
I don't recall Brian Higgins being there.
Right. So what I'm trying to register is whether or not you knew at the time that you went to Brian Albert's house, at least that second time, that you might or might not have expected to see Brian Higgins there because you knew he was at the home when John Keefe arrived the night before.
Can you rephrase that question? I'm not following you.
Sure.
I was going to say, where are you going with this,
When you
counselor?
went back to, in other words, during the time that you were investigating and joining Sergeant Lank
Yes.
back over at Brian Albert's house, you knew that Brian Higgins had been somehow in that home the night before.
I don't believe I did at that time.
When do you think you learned that?
At sometime afterwards, probably when I saw the list and reviewed the narratives of the officers.
Would that have been days or weeks later?
No, it probably would have been, within 24 hours or so.
Okay, within 24 hours of your involvement.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
that's what I was trying to get to.
Okay,
Thank
I
you for that.
apologize.
My bad. Bad questioning on my part. So within 24 hours of your involvement, which would have been, your involvement was the early morning hours of January 29th.
That's correct.
Correct? Within 24 hours of that, you knew Brian Higgins was somehow tangentially involved or collaterally involved as a potential witness, if nothing else.
I'm not sure he was a witness to anything. I was aware that he attended their house at 34 Fairview after they left the bar.
Right. And you said, well, I'm not.
The dude's in the house. Dead guy on the lawn. How is dude in house not a potential witness to dead guy on the lawn? It's pretty fucking straight logic, common sense. Frankly, anyone in that vicinity should have been interviewed as a potential witness. Anyone from 32 Fairview, anyone from 36 Fairview, anyone from across the road, they should have all been interviewed as potential witnesses to just at least check them and say, hey, you were home that night. Did you see anything? It's straightforward, is it not?
Not sure he was a witness to anything. The one way to figure out whether or not someone is a witness to anything is to actually formally interview them, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Which you did not do.
We were removed from the investigation before I found out Brian Higgins was involved.
Okay, so you were
So
removed.
I wouldn't be interviewing him.
you were removed, and then
So
it was
why were
within
you
a
still
few hours
looking
of that
into
that
it
you
then if
realized
you'd
that
been
Brian
removed
Higgins
from the
was somehow
investigation?
involved.
Not a few hours. No, I said it was within 24 hours probably.
Okay. You're aware that Mr. Higgins not only had a office at Canton PD, he also had a key card for Canton PD.
Yes, he did.
Explain for the jurors what a key card or an access card at Canton PD means. What is that? What is a key card for Canton PD?
So it's a secure building. I think we've all seen it. You have the square boxes with the red light. The key card allows you access into the building. And depending upon your rank, you have different rights. Each individual has different rights to enter different areas.
You had, for instance, being a top-level Canton lieutenant, you had a key card that was probably the functional equivalent of a master key card. You could get in pretty much any place you wanted.
Absolutely not.
Okay, where could you go?
It's easier if I say where I can't go.
That probably is easier.
Would that be where?
Explain that.
So I can't go to the armory, which is where weapons are kept and ammunition is kept, and I can't go into permanent evidence.
Okay. You're aware that Brian Higgins had a key card.
Yes, I am.
And that access card gave him access to pretty much, with the exception of the armory, possibly the evidence room, and what was the other location?
I think that's what I said, the evidence room
Okay.
and the armory.
With the exception of those, you're aware that Brian Higgins' key card gave him access basically to the entirety of the Canton Police Department?
Well, so I want to specify, I don't specifically know what Brian Higgins had rights to, but there are also parts of our department that are secured by key locks that he wouldn't have access to, and I don't have access to as well, offices and things of that nature.
I want to focus your attention on the Sally Port, if I
Okay.
could. You can enter the Sally Port, which is a fancy name for a garage, correct?
It certainly is, yes.
Okay. You can enter that from the outside, meaning out in the elements. You come from a parking lot adjacent to or that services the Sally Port. You can enter from there, correct?
Yes, there's one pedestrian door on the main entrance side, and it's for location purposes. It's right beside the garage door that's marked number 4.
And the garage door is one of those big roll-up, industrial-style roll-up doors that comes up and down.
That is correct.
And then you can also enter the Sally Port from inside Canton PD, correct?
There are 2 locations you can enter the Sally Port from inside, yes.
And Brian Higgins' key card gave him access to both of those locations, the pedestrian portal going into the Sally Port from outside, as well as the pedestrian portal from inside Canton PD.
That would be correct.
Okay. Speaking of the Sally Port, you were, if not the person, one of the people who let Massachusetts State Police into the Sally Port on February 1st, 2022 to process the black SUV, correct? The Lexus.
I'm not sure if I was the one that gave them access, but like I said, I've testified, but I certainly would have.
Okay. That SUV had actually arrived on January 29th, 2022, 3 days earlier. Is that right?
I believe so, sometime after 5 or 6. I'm
So
not
it
sure of
was
the time.
in the Sally Port from January 29th all the way to February 1st, at least to your knowledge, for 3 full days in the Sally Port, correct?
2.5 to 3, yes.
Okay. From the time it arrived at Canton PD until it was processed out and moved out of the Sally Port, how many people would have had physical access to that SUV?
Everybody that possessed a key card.
And that's basically everybody at Canton PD that is a sworn officer, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Even some civilians, correct?
I'm not sure of civilians. What civilian?
But do y'all have non-sworn civilians that?
We don't.
Things?
No, we do not. Well, we do, but I'm not sure whether they would have access, what their access is.
So at least the entirety of the police department, the sworn police department, correct?
The uniform police, yes.
As well as Brian Higgins, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, can I go back to something?
Sure.
When you were at 34 Fairview, when you walked in with Sergeant Lank, you walked in through the side door or the main door?
Side door.
Side door into the family room, correct?
I believe it's a family room, yes.
Walked into the kitchen, correct?
I was by the kitchen.
Adjacent to the
Yep.
kitchen. Did you see a dog?
I did not.
Hello, Megan.
Speaking of the Sally Port, I want to move back to the Sally Port. I apologize about bouncing around a little bit.
Perfectly fine.
Moving back to the Sally Port, you indicated that basically all the uniformed officers, every single uniformed officer at Canton PD would have had access to that Sally Port, as well as Brian Higgins. They also would have had access to everything inside the Sally Port, whatever was left there.
Yes.
The SUV and other stuff, for lack of a better technical phrase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you photograph or did you cause to be photographed the SUV when it arrived on January 29th in your Sally Port?
But we had been recused at that point, and I wasn't working when the vehicle arrived. So
I thought you said you were recused only from doing interviews.
from doing investigative interviews, but I wasn't working when the vehicle came in.
Okay. So you could have taken photographs of the vehicle had you wanted to, or caused someone to do that had you wanted to.
I had no idea that vehicle was coming to Canton PD, sir.
Okay. Once you got to, as the lieutenant in charge, it seemed, was it important to you to know that a seminal piece of evidence had been moved into the custody and control of Canton PD?
It wasn't important to me. It's the state police investigation.
Even though it
Again,
was on your property, in your Sally Port, with access through your key cards?
that's
I was going to say, I mean, does that mean that the state troopers have complete access to all the areas of Canton PD that any sworn officer ordinarily would? I mean, I can't just drop my car in my neighbor's garage and leave it there, you know?
that's up to my chief. That's not up to me.
I see. To your knowledge, let me just ask it this way. To your knowledge, did anybody seek to photograph the vehicle when it arrived at Canton PD on January 29th, 2022, to your knowledge?
I have no personal knowledge of that.
Have you ever seen a photograph of that vehicle that was taken by someone in law enforcement on January 29th? I'm going to give you 3 days. January 29th, January 30th, January 31st, 30th, or February 1st.
I have seen photographs. I'm not sure what days they were taken. The photos were taken.
You have not seen a photograph that was taken on January 29th, however, have you?
I've never seen anything dated January 29th.
You've never seen a photo, and I'm going to go through this a little bit more. You've never seen a photograph that was taken on January 30th, have you?
Yeah, I have never seen any photographs with any dates on them.
Okay.
I believe.
Do you think that would have been you were at the time the head of detectives, correct?
No, that's not correct.
You were not. You had already moved from that spot. In January of 2022, I may be wrong. I thought as the lieutenant, you were also the head of detectives.
No, that was Lieutenant Kelleher at the time. I know you keep, it's a mix-up. So we've had promotions since January 29th, and I think that's where the mix-up might be.
So he was
when you refer to Deputy Chief Kelleher, he was actually Lieutenant Kelleher, and he was in charge of detectives at that time.
At some point, had you been in charge of detectives?
I became in charge of detectives in June of 2022.
June of 2022?
Yeah, approximately 6 months later.
Understood. You had been a detective previously, however.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
As a detective, do you believe that it would have been important to photograph, had you had your druthers to do it, it would have been important to photograph that vehicle when it came in so that it could be memorialized and documented the exact condition that vehicle came in on January 29th, 2022?
So this is important to know that, unfortunately, John O'Keefe was deceased at this time. Once John O'Keefe becomes deceased, it becomes the state police's investigation, the Norfolk County District Attorney CPAC investigation. That's why it is not our investigation. It's up to the investigating agency to make those decisions.
Even something as uninvasive as taking photographs?
Yes.
Okay. You would agree, as a former detective and
non-invasive,
former
but anyway.
head of detectives, that there are protocols for securing evidence of all types, correct?
Correct.
Those protocols dictate that not only is evidence properly secured, once it's seized, it needs to be properly secured, and it needs to be separated from other evidence to avoid something known as cross-contamination, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree with me that that is paramount in evidence handling in any investigation, correct?
Yes.
And that's because once evidence is cross-contaminated, its integrity basically collapses, right?
That's correct.
It's especially true of biological material, isn't that right?
Yes.
Because biological material, like a shovel, the biological material on the shovel becomes hypersensitive. It's hyper important. It can be cross-contaminated with other items.
Sure.
It can tell an incorrect story, correct?
Yes.
It could tell, if there's cross-contamination, it could tell a false story.
It's been done, yes.
And DNA, obviously, we're talking about
been
biological
done?
material.
Wait. That is not great in front of the jury. That could be read a few different ways. That could be, yes, we've contaminated a crime scene before and an innocent person has gone to jail. Or, yes, someone fucked up and someone got off scot-free because the DNA evidence was ruined. That's still not something either way you want to say in front of the jury.
The most sensitive of all the biological material is DNA evidence, right?
What do you mean sensitive?
So it might take some effort to move saliva from one item to another. It takes almost no effort to move DNA from one item to another and to detect it. You understand what I'm saying? The sensitivity of detection.
No, I don't understand what you're saying.
You understand that I could touch this podium and you might not get my fingerprint off of it.
Correct.
Might not, correct?
Might not.
What do you think about getting my DNA off that podium
Yes.
that I just touched? You're absolutely going to get it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I mean by sensitivity.
Okay.
You would agree that DNA is hypersensitive.
I would agree that DNA is better than fingerprints, yes.
I'd like you to take a look at a series of photographs if we could. Can I approach John?
Yes.
4 photographs, Scott, I'd like you to look at briefly and familiarize yourself with if you can. Scott, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
How do you recognize what's depicted in each one of those? There's 4 of them in front of you. Just generally, how do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Generally, I know this is the exchange of custody from the Canton Police to Massachusetts State Police.
Are those taken inside the Sallyport, to your knowledge?
They are, yes.
Some of those photographs include the SUV,
One SUV picture, yes.
and some of those photographs include the blood evidence that you've earlier described, the solo cups, the Stop and Shop bag.
That is correct, yes, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to have these marked as next in order.
Any objections to Brennan?
No objection, thank you.
I'd like to start with
Based on the location of the vehicle,
before it shows a license plate. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
yes, based on the location of the vehicle, the broken taillight, I believe that's Miss Reed's vehicle.
And do you know when this photograph was taken?
I do not.
Do you believe it was taken between January 29th and February 1st?
Yes.
But you don't know when it was taken?
No, I don't have personal knowledge, no.
I just want to draw your attention very briefly, just to orient us to this area on the bottom right-hand corner. Do you see that, what looks like a white rag on the ground?
Yes, based on the pictures, I think it might be a paper towel, but yes.
Okay. If we could look at the next photograph, which is 55, looks like a paper bag. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes,
What is that?
that's the Stop and Shop bag that contained the 6 samples.
Do you see the rag in that photograph as well?
Yeah, we could call it agree to call it a rag or
You think it's a paper towel?
I'm not sure. It looks like a paper towel on the picture in the pictures, but it's a white object. Yes.
For all I care, the white thing, that's
Yes.
fine. All right, and do you see that that's
The white.
next to a tire just at the top of the picture? Just for
Yeah,
orientation purposes?
Yeah, it appears to be 18 to 2 feet, 18 inches to 24 inches behind the tire. Yes.
Okay, and that, of course, is the tire of the SUV.
Yes, I would think
So
so.
that would be the right rear of the SUV, just a few inches from this bag, correct?
It would be a couple of feet from the bag. Yes.
Okay, if we could take a look at the next photograph. This is Exhibit 56 for the record. What's depicted inside the bag?
The red Solo cups.
And you still see the rag in the photograph.
I sure do. Yes.
So the SUV would be right here, correct? At the top of the left.
Well, I can't see the top of it. It would be it's nearby. Yes.
Okay. And it's not just nearby, it's the right rear of the SUV that's nearby, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And one final photograph. This is Exhibit 57 for the record. What is inside that? What's depicted inside that bag?
The red Solo cups with coagulated blood.
And these are the only, we can have the lights, please. And so if you take that down. These are the only photographs that we have or that you've ever seen of those red Solo cups, that Stop and Shop bag, and the biological material in those red Solo cups.
The only ones I have seen. Yes.
And those photographs that you see are within 2.5 feet from the right rear of that SUV, correct?
Approximately. Yes.
And the right rear of that SUV houses the taillight material, correct? The taillight area.
Tail light area. Yes.
The cups were not sealed, correct?
The cups were not sealed.
The bag was not sealed, was it?
As far as I know, what do you mean by sealed?
Yesterday, you brought a box in. Remember that?
Yes,
That box had tape on it.
that's correct.
What color was the tape?
Red.
Why is the tape red?
It can be red. It can be blue. I mean, evidence tape is different colors.
Normally, in your experience, red evidence tape is used to formally seal evidence bags or evidence containers, correct?
Yes.
That's because it highlights to the eye a visual cue. Hey, that's important. It's been sealed. It's got bright red tape on it, correct?
Correct.
Oftentimes, that tape has additional information on it as well, correct?
You could have initials on it of who put the tape on. Yes.
Right. In other words, it might say evidence, correct? It might be pre-printed with the
Pre-printed. Yes. Correct.
and it may have a place for initials to be.
Correct.
And one of the reasons that you initial it is because if someone takes a razor blade and cuts through, or a knife and cuts through that tape, those initials are cut through, it has to be retaped and reinitialed, correct?
That is correct.
That is a basic protocol for chain of custody, is it not?
Yes.
And that's to maintain the care, custody, and control and the integrity over the items and the items inside the evidence container, whatever they may be.
That's correct.
Whether they are biological material, physical items of evidence, a document, whatever.
Correct.
None of that was done with what we just saw, correct?
Correct.
We've agreed already that the blood was stored in non-sterile solo cups, correct?
Correct.
We've agreed that those cups were not sealed. The cups themselves were not sealed. There was no cap. There was no plastic, plasticine, saran wrap, nothing put over the cups, correct?
That is correct.
So they were open.
Yes.
They were not in an evidence bag. They were in a grocery bag, correct?
They were, yes.
Yesterday on direct examination, it may have been on cross-examination, Mr. Gabb.
Have you ever become aware that pig DNA was found within those solo cups?
I don't remember.
I don't actually know if it was. I just think that'd be funny.
You said, I have no idea where Sergeant Lang got that grocery bag, correct?
I don't know where the bag came from, no.
Could it come out of the back of his car seat, correct?
I'm assuming it came out of one of the cars, yes.
No idea what had been in that bag previous to those cups with blood being in the bag,
I
correct?
have no personal knowledge of that.
And obviously that bag, it goes without saying, is not a forensically sterile item either,
Pulled it
correct?
out of his ass,
Most
right?
bags are not sterilized.
And not only the cups were not sealed, the bag that the cups were in was not sealed.
They were only closed, correct.
You will agree that having unsealed and unsecured biological material, specifically blood material, situated right next to the right rear quarter panel of that SUV would not be within normal protocols for securing evidence, correct?
This was in the hands of a criminalist. It was an exchange of custody. I don't have any issue with it.
You have no personal knowledge of where that bag had been or where the cups had been previous to that photograph being taken.
Correct.
You will agree that having unsealed and unsecured blood right next to the right rear of the SUV is a recipe for cross-contamination, wouldn't you?
Not in the hands of a trained criminalist, I wouldn't know.
Well, generally speaking, there were other people there that weren't the trained criminalists, right?
There was a photographer who took the pictures.
Who's not a trained criminalist.
Correct. But the cups weren't in his hands. It was in the criminalist's hands. Those are the criminalist's hands you see gloved in that photo.
That's not my question. My question is, there was unsealed blood and in an unsealed bag for how much time you don't know, sitting right there by the right rear of that SUV, correct?
No, I do know.
How do you know?
Because I'm the one that brought the bag with the criminalist to that area. They photographed it, documented it, and then they transferred it to their plastic containers.
And before you grabbed that bag, you don't know where that bag had been for 3 days hence, 3 days before.
I know it had been in the temporary evidence room in a refrigerator.
You actually never saw it in the temporary evidence room in the refrigerator until February 1st, did you?
I don't recall.
So you don't know where that bag had been. You don't know who had handled those cups before you pulled them out of that temporary evidence locker, correct?
There's no...
I have no personal knowledge. If anybody else, I have no personal knowledge. I took them out of the refrigerator. That's all I can testify to.
Do you remember us talking about this about a year ago?
Yes.
And I asked you, would you agree that having unsealed and unsecured blood next to the right rear portion of the SUV is a recipe for cross-contamination? I asked you that question.
You did.
And you said, if I can speak to this incident alone, and I asked, that's a yes or no question.
That is
Do
correct.
you remember that?
Yes.
And you said, well, it's not a yes or no, but for your purposes, I would say yes.
Correct.
So it is, at least in your mind, a recipe for potential cross-contamination, correct?
Not in this particular situation, which was clarified later on.
Although you did say yes in answer
Hypothetically,
to my
anything,
question.
hypothetically, anything is possible, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Brennan?
All of this shit could have been avoided as well if they'd just done their goddamn jobs properly. Like I would not actually give a shit if it wasn't that, like, if she'd actually ran him over, if she actually killed him, fine. It's still a half decent case to watch. It's still all that. But you know what? 90% of this would be fine if the cops had done their fucking jobs properly. If there hadn't been terrible evidence collection, if there hadn't been terrible witness statement taking. God, I can't even get the words out properly. If they had done their goddamn jobs properly, it wouldn't actually look like there's a fucking conspiracy irrespective of whether she killed him or not. But no, they've had to go out of their way to make it look like they're covering their asses for one of their own. And it's either they're deliberately doing it or it's out of sheer stupidity. And either way, it's a bad look and should be taken into account. Canvassing, thank you. Yes. Like, Jesus Christ on a cracker. If they'd just done the investigation properly, this could be a very different case. But more to the point, we probably wouldn't have had this case because if the investigation had been done properly, she probably would have been cleared prior to the first trial.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
Lieutenant Gallagher, you mentioned that one of your colleagues who lived on Fairview Road had an OWL camera.
Had an outlook camera, yes.
That day or that morning when you went to Fairview and looked around where Mr. O'Keefe's, where you were directed Mr. O'Keefe's body was, were you aware that that gentleman had a camera?
Yes.
You shared with us that you had familiarity with the angle of that camera. Do you have any information whatsoever that he or anybody on his behalf used the phone to change the camera angle?
No, I don't.
Do you know if that camera could even reach the street if you wanted to?
I'm not sure.
Do you have any information that there are applications or
Do you have any information that any of that is not possible? And therefore should have still done your job and obtained the video camera irrespective. I mean, for all you know, Brennan, the guy could have gotten a delivery of a fucking mirror that changed the available angle. He should have done his fucking job.
different things you can do to the camera to move it remotely? Is there any evidence or information you have?
No.
When you decided not to ask him about the camera, was that based on anything other than your already familiarity and knowledge of the angle that camera was set?
No.
At any time he's ever shown you, you've ever seen clips from that camera, were they consistently showing the same area or did it change over time?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it.
They were the same.
In your mind, why didn't you go seek footage from that camera?
In my mind,
Yes.
because I knew it wouldn't have captured anything. Activated cameras, and he didn't have them on the street because it's a busy street and the batteries would die, and and who knows, very quickly if they captured the street.
You said that's a very busy street. Are you familiar with Fairview Road?
Yes,
Is that a road? Is that a public
It
road?
doesn't
it's a public way in the town of
matter.
Canton, yes.
You still
As
do
a
your
public way in
goddamn
the town
job.
of
It doesn't
Canton,
matter
do you
what
know
your own
who
personal
operates
opinion
and
on it
cleans
is.
and monitors that road? Who's responsible for that?
Yes, the Department of Public Works for the town of Canton.
Hi, Corncob. Yeah, that's been a long time.
You were asked about
Hope you're
a
doing well.
claim of a fight. Did any witness ever suggest
Oh,
to
my
you
nose.
that Mr. O'Keefe had been in a fight?
No.
When you first learned about Mr. O'Keefe, did you get a chance to actually look at his body?
No, I did not.
Did you get a chance to look at his wounds?
No, I did not.
Did you get a chance to examine his clothing and whether there was any trace evidence left
Objection,
behind?
Your Honor.
I'll allow it.
No, I did not.
Early in an investigation,
Of course you
when
will, Bill.
investigators have no information, is it common to speculate?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
What is the natural process for an investigator when you start upon a situation and know nothing about what happened?
In this particular case, we came up with scenarios that possibly could have brought John to that spot. And we were focused on trying to find out and hopefully getting to the hospital. Hopefully,
Deanna, thank you so much for the super chat. Ooh, someone's got a fire going there. Ooh, that looks nice and warm. I only watch because of you. I hate the judge, and no, you pay tribute to Jeff Frog. Oh, thank you, Deanna. And look, and I mentioned it earlier, but if you haven't already, at some point, head over to X to Charlie D'Angelo's page. He did an amazing song that he said was inspired by Jeff. I listened to it like 4 or 5 times in the office, and I got a little bit choked up. I'm not going to lie. It's an amazing song.
the Can't Fire Department in the hospital would save his life, and he could tell us how he got to where he was.
Was that anything beyond the surmise or speculation of detectives, or did that information come from a witness?
No, that was us. I guess you would call it spitballing on possibilities.
Did you ever come across a witness
Sorry,
that said that this was
Don't usually
Mr. O'Keefe's
try and
injuries were the
get
result?
an itch in my
of a
nose,
fight?
but
No, we did not.
If we could play Exhibit 51, please. I want to ask you some questions about the area you searched where you were directed Mr. O'Keefe was.
fair enough, Glennis. I'll ask Charlie if he's okay with me playing it on stream at some point.
Stop it there, please, Ms. Gilman.
I don't think you'll have an issue with it, but I
You
just want
did
to get
not
his
see
permission first.
exactly where John O'Keefe was when he was found?
No, I did not.
Who directed you to this area?
I was directed twice, first by Sergeant Good and then by Sergeant Lang, Detective Sergeant Lang.
You shared with us yesterday you were looking in that area where you thought John O'Keefe was found.
Correct.
You asked questions about a berm. Is that the separation between the street and the yard?
Yes, it is.
Did you clear off a piece of that berm?
We did.
And the reason was?
We wanted to see what was there. We didn't know what was there.
Did you do a search from the flagpole all the way to the street?
No.
Did you do a search of that flagpole across the front yard?
No.
Did you do a search from that flagpole all across the berm, all the way down the line?
No, it was approximately 15 to 18 inches.
And why such a limited search?
Because we had no other reason than it was a medical call at this time.
Did you see snow in other parts of the yard?
Yes, the entire yard was covered.
And other than Officer Lang's footprints across the front of the yard, no other footprints?
There were no other footprints.
Any other visible signs that anything was moved or dragged across that side or front lawn?
No, not at all.
Any doggy prints in the snow?
No, not at all.
Oh,
You were asked
fuck
whether you
off.
sought a search warrant. Is there a difference between a witness and an eyewitness?
Yes.
You were asked questions about people in the home and they were characterized as witnesses. Did you have any information that
Deanna, there's a few different ways, but honestly, I've been a little bit lazy in getting things set up. I do have a Ko-Fi. I have no idea what the link is for that. Otherwise, I know people are still iffy about PayPal. I've got Stripe. There's various things down below in the video description, but it's entirely up to you. Otherwise, honestly, just hold off and wait until I do a Griff stream. In which case, I should have all those sorts of things properly fixed up. So, piece of the berm that had the shoe on it surprised all the EMS and cops didn't trip over it. No shit. Are you serious? That's where the shoe was? Jesus.
anybody inside that home was a witness to what happened to Mr. O'Keefe?
No.
Did you have any information when you made
How
the
do you
decision
know if
about
you don't
search warrants?
ask
Did you have any
them?
information from anybody, anywhere, that Mr. O'Keefe ever stepped 1 foot inside that home?
I'm going to allow it. Briefly, can we turn the lights on, Mr. Brennan?
Oh, you
Yes,
better
please.
go and...
Take that down. Okay.
Fucking hell. I've really got to get like an Apple Watch or a... Well, no, I don't want an Apple Watch because I'll wind up dead on the front lawn of a cop's place. I got to get like a heart monitor watch for this shit. I really do. Also, you'll be happy to know I've just about worked out how to get OBS working through StreamYard so that the nested effects and the chat and everything appear on stream like ordinary. I've just about worked it out because, as it turns out, you can actually use the virtual camera setup in OBS to be able to do that. I just have to make sure that... Oh, excuse me. I just have to make sure that I've got the setup properly done. Because the one thing that I've got to work out is making sure that my voice doesn't double up. So... Give me a run for my wit. She takes after her mother like that, I'll be perfectly honest. But, yeah, I've got to work something else out there, what to do there. She's a little bit grumpy that she's been banned from streaming for a little bit, but, I mean, you know, that was a consequence of her actions, so we'll see what happens there.
May I?
Yes.
As a lifelong law enforcement officer, have you obtained search warrants before?
Yes.
Have you obtained search warrants for homes?
Yes, many times.
Is there a certain requirement before you obtain a search warrant for a home?
Yes, critical legal standards, yes.
And what is that?
Probable cause.
And for
Wait. What do you mean you can fix things, Corn Pope? Don't get my hopes up and dash them. I mean, there's a reason that I've got 2 channels running, because eventually I'm going to have to hit the nuke button on the big one. Don't give me false hope, woman. But, yeah, sure, we can chat. Cheers.
what does that mean, probable cause?
So probable cause is a reasonable belief that a crime has been committed or evidence of a crime can be found in a specific location.
Can you obtain a search warrant if you do not have a reasonable belief that evidence exists somewhere?
No, you cannot.
Is there a process in getting a search warrant? Can you just walk in a home and say, I have a search warrant, or do you have to do something?
You have to write an affidavit in good faith, swearing before the court that all your information is accurate and truthful, and present the facts, circumstances, witness statements that would make you believe that there was a reason to violate your Fourth Amendment constitutional right.
Fair
When
enough.
you walked into Fairview that morning with Sergeant Lang, did you have a search warrant?
No, I did not.
Did you have any reason to get a search warrant?
No reason at all.
When you walked in, were you invited?
Yes.
Did anybody prevent you from coming in?
No, not
Did
at all.
anybody ever ask you to leave?
No, not at all.
When you spoke to Mr. Albert, did he ever
Well, thank
discontinue
you.
or
But
end
I
the
absolutely
conversation?
will appreciate that, because I appreciate any help I can get. Especially now that my streaming at the moment is while I'm in the car. It has tanked the channel.
Were you doing any favors?
Which
for
Aussie, thank
anybody
you to
that
each and every
morning?
one of you for joining.
No, of course not.
If you had probable cause to search anywhere that morning, would you have?
Absolutely.
You were asked questions about memorializing your efforts when you were in the area of Mr. O'Keefe's body. And you were asked about written reports. Are there other ways to memorialize efforts other than writing a report?
Yes.
You videotaped, or
Awesome.
you had Sergeant Good videotape
Just
your
keep in mind, it
search?
might
That's
take me a
correct.
day
Who
or so to
told
get
him to
back
do
to you.
that?
Time
I
zones.
did.
Why did you tell him to do that?
Because I want it, in case it ever became an issue, I wasn't familiar with it being used before. I wanted people to understand how effective it was.
Do you know whether or not the police cars have dash cams?
They do, yes.
Do you know if any of the police cars had dash cams that day?
3 of them did, yes.
You mentioned that at some point you learned that Mr. O'Keefe had passed.
I'm not sure when we found that out, but yes.
Is there a statute or a rule when there is a death, whether a local county keeps the case or it needs to be transferred?
It's transferred, yes.
Is there a rule, or is that a policy of the Canton Police Department?
It's a rule.
You were asked about Alexis and the Sally Port.
Correct.
Do you know exactly what time that Alexis was brought to the Sally Port?
I don't have any personal knowledge of that.
You were asked about a broken taillight. Have or had you reviewed any of the dash cams from the Canton Police Department that day?
Not that day, no.
You were asked about cross-contamination with the cups. When you brought the cups to the criminalist, where did you give them to him or her?
I carried them down to, we walked together, I carried them down to the Sally Port.
Did you see anybody using a white rag or a paper towel to dip it in any of the cups?
No.
Did you see anybody shaking the cups or splashing?
No, they were handled very carefully.
Sustained is
Did you see anything that would cause you concern that there was some type of purposeful or inadvertent contamination or transfer?
Absolutely not.
And you've been trained.
Yes.
Did you see anything?
I said just keep in mind it might take me a day or so to email back because of the time zones, because I probably won't see it until sometime tomorrow night.
During that time that caused you any concern about potential corruption of evidence?
No, I had complete faith in the criminalist.
May I approach your Honor?
Well, maybe that was
There's
part
a
of the problem.
box for identification that has a glass in it. I'd like to make that into evidence. I'll do it later then. Thanks.
Is there any objection, Mr. Jackson, any objection to,
Yeah, just wait.
No objection, thank you.
all right, so we can put it in at any time then? And then
Anytime.
when Mr. McDermott comes back?
Thank you. The glass that you showed the jury yesterday, when you showed it to us yesterday, did it look any differently than when you recovered it from the ground where you were looking that morning?
No.
Did you have any information that that glass came from inside Fairview Road?
No.
Do you know where that glass came from?
I have no personal knowledge where that glass came from.
Thank you. I have no
Then
further
why
questions.
didn't you check Fairview?
Very briefly, Your Honor, you indicated that you were spitballing, to use your word, correct?
Correct.
Trying to figure out what happened.
Correct.
That's the job of an investigator, correct?
That is correct.
You
Yes,
don't
sir.
just take witnesses' words for things,
Why
do
didn't
you?
you
That is
investigate?
correct.
You have to corroborate things.
Yes.
You have to look deeper,
Yes.
ask more questions,
Absolutely.
actually investigate.
That's why we're here today.
You don't rule out anything or anyone. right off the bat, correct?
Correct. It was
No
done.
one is ruled out. Nothing is ruled out.
That is correct.
You
Yes,
follow where the evidence leads you, period. Amen.
absolutely.
You didn't seek, to separate the occupants at 34 Fairview, correct?
No.
You didn't interview Brian Albert formally, did you?
I did not know.
You were asked by Mr. Brennan, did he ever end the conversation precipitously? Did he end it earlier? Anything like that? He didn't end any interview because he wasn't interviewed, correct?
That is correct.
You didn't interview Brian Higgins.
That is correct.
You wouldn't interview Brian Higgins because he's your personal friend, correct?
Correct.
But you didn't have anybody else interview him either, did you?
Again, we're talking, I think we've gone over this and maybe you didn't understand. I didn't know Brian Higgins was at the house at that time.
Because you didn't ask anybody else who was at the house at that time.
I wasn't talking to anybody at that house. Correct.
Might have been a good idea, wouldn't it?
Not at that time. We were there for one specific reason. We wanted to get to the hospital. So no.
Might have been a
I
good
disagree.
idea to sit
Jackson's fucking fishing, throwing dynamite out of the side of a chopper. This is hilarious.
Mr. Albert down and say, there, you're shaking your head again. I'm not done with my question. Might have been a good idea, Mr. Gallagher, since you happen to be there, no sweat off your brow, to sit Mr. Albert down and say, by the way, I got a pen and a paper. Who was here last night, just before John O'Keefe was found dead on your lawn? Who was here? Might have been a good idea, correct?
So that was already done by Detective Sergeant Lank, and it was documented in his report of everybody of what Mr. Jackson is asking.
Then how did you
So
two
then
not
you
know
should have
that
known
Brian
that
Higgins
Brian
was
Higgins-
there?
Was,
I don't know what,
thank you.
where?
At
I
34
mean, I'm confused. At what time?
Right.
At what time?
Exactly.
At what time?
When John O'Keefe arrived
Okay.
at 34 Fairview after midnight on January 29th, 2022.
So when I discovered Brian Higgins was there, wasn't until I read the report.
If you were standing in the house, Sergeant Lang, you just told these jurors knew that Brian Higgins and everybody else was there.
He had obtained the names. He hadn't written the report yet.
And hadn't told his boss,
I don't recall.
even though you two went together to interview yet another witness.
That's correct. There was a very fast-moving scene and pace. That is correct.
While you were
And what's the matter?
spitballing, you
You
also
wanna
didn't
move
secure the
faster?
camera footage
Are we
that we
not at
talked
the
about,
end
the
of the
Arlo
tape?
footage.
Yes, that's correct.
You also didn't actually formally search the house, correct?
Absolutely
We
correct.
just talked about that. You didn't seek consent by Brian, pardon me, by Brian Albert to search the house, correct?
That's correct.
You also didn't seek a search warrant. You talked about that, correct?
Correct.
You don't get punished or in trouble if you seek a search warrant and a judge who has to sign the search warrant. Normal citizens can't do that. It requires a judge's signature. You don't get in trouble or get spanked or get slapped or get fined if you seek a search warrant that is denied, correct?
In this particular situation, I would need to articulate facts, certain circumstances, and witness statements. What I had was nobody could put John O'Keefe in the house, including
There was an article that could have come from the kitchen. How is that not sufficient to at least look in the kitchen? You had a broken glass that you can't say where it came from. More likely than not, it came from inside the house. There's your probable fucking cause to at least search the premises. Fuck off.
Let's read. And that we had a glass where they were coming from a bar. And I had 3 separate police officers, including myself, that had been in that house on 3 separate occasions and saw nothing amiss. I have a good faith obligation to present the truth to a judge.
You got a good
And
faith
if I
obligation to investigate this thing, you fucktard.
I can be found, end up on a Brady list or a Giglio list, as you know. And my credibility to testify in my career is basically over. So yes, you can get in trouble.
You're talking about lying in an affidavit, sir.
I'm talking about misleading.
Correct.
I would have to twist circumstances to have the right to search Brian Albert's house. We had no reason, and there's been no reason since.
How about this? There's a dead guy on the lawn that looked like he
I'm sorry, what? There's been no reason since to search Brian Albert's house. I'm sorry, what? Fuck off.
It could have been a physical altercation. How about that? Might that be of some concern to go inside the house and see if there was a struggle started in the house?
There's still no evidence to go into the house.
You're the guy that's out on the lawn with no coat on. You think the coat might be inside the house? That might be a reasonable assumption? Yes or no?
No.
You're the guy outside with no shoe on. You think the shoe might be inside the house? That might be a reasonable assumption?
I never saw Mr. O'Keefe. I wasn't aware that he
Because you didn't
have his
seek
shoes.
to find out the details. Other people knew every single fact that I just suggested at the time you walked in the house, correct?
Sustained.
The fact is, you didn't seek a search warrant.
I wouldn't, correct.
The fact is, you never searched the house.
That's correct.
The fact is, you never searched the basement.
That's correct.
The fact is, you never searched the garage.
That's correct.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Have you ever learned one fact that would have justified searching that house?
Not to this day.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained is to form, and you can put the glass in right now, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. Move that into evidence, please.
Is it a 58? All right, Lieutenant, you're all set, sir.
Thank you.
No one got pulled over.
Your next witness, Mr. Brennan?
I'd like to play clip 18, please.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Your Honor, name and phone.
Next completely out of context clip. Roll it.
Your Honor, may we approach? This is only to the
To be clear, a good faith basis for a search warrant is a extraordinarily low bar. All you have to have is a reasonable suspicion that there is potential evidence to be located. This guy's talking out his fucking ass. Do I think that they could resubmit their motion to allow Michael Easter to testify? At this point in time, probably not. I mean, they could. I don't think there is even a remote possibility that Bev entertains it. We're already partway through the trial. If they really are that close to ending the case in chief, I mean, a decent judge would, but no, I would fully expect it to be knocked back. Well, good. I'm glad that the clips are going to get put into context. They kind of have to. I mean, hell, they might even just make the jury sit down and watch the entire fucking documentary. Rule of completeness, Bev wouldn't be able to argue against it. I know that they're denying everything. And a reasonable... I think there's actually Massachusetts state case law that says that they should have been entitled to do it. But Bev's just made her own ruling. Again, I think that's a very appealable issue. Mind you, there are several appealable issues so far. And I think Bev knows that. Did I pause the video, or is the ceiling fan just not running?
Like a good place to take our morning recess, so we'll take a 15 to 20 minute break.
All rise, please. Here's loads of notebooks and follow me.
And that's the problem, and that's why I hate so much of this case. Because there is a good chunk of it that is purely he said, she said. It's quite literally Jen McCabe's word against nobody's. Katie McLaughlin's word against nobody's. Like, sorry, I'm trying to walk and chew gum and talk at the same time. My brain factor is not working 100% here.
Do you need another one, Chrissy? Do you need one more? No. I haven't.
Honestly, I think that the only way that Easter comes back in is if one of the prosecution's witnesses is dumb enough to say that the entire investigation was done by the book and was done to an appropriate standard. Then I think that opens the door for a rebuttal. But I don't think they'll be dumb enough to do it. I mean, we can always hope. stupid.
The Commonwealth moves into evidence and asks to play clip 18.
Okay.
So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder.
Thank you. We'll
Comment.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. That clip gives context. Doesn't in any way absolve the police for not doing the investigation properly.
6:59.
All right, your next witness.
One more, please, Your Honor. The Commonwealth moves into evidence and seeks to play clip number 17, please.
Okay.
I gave an interview with ABC with Matt Gutman. I think this was whom I gave the interview to, and I said, he asked why was I saying, could I hit him? Did I hit him? And I said, yeah, my first thought was I'd been out late, I'd been drinking, and he's in the general vicinity of where I last saw him. I mean, they talk about the left side of the property and the right as if it's, Hammersmith Farms. It's a postage stamp. It's 50 feet. So he's in the front yard to the left of the front door, and no one's coming out of the house. Jen's telling me nobody's seen him. So I'm thinking, Jesus, was I starting to pull away and I ran over his foot? Like, he's roughly where I left him. So yeah, when I found him, I was thinking, did I clip him somehow? Same jump drive has clips.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in order, it has 18 and then 17, or are they in the reverse order on the clip?
If I may see the exhibit. This one exhibit contains clip 12, clip 12A, clip 16, clip 17, and clip 18, all of which were previously introduced.
Okay. And it's exhibit number what? Thank you. All right, thank you. Your next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. Commonwealth call Mr. Robert Gilman to the stand.
Okay.
Tell Ms. Ready evidence to give to the court and jury. He's going to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, super.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Lolly,
Good morning.
Lollygagger.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, stating your last name, spelling your last name for the court?
Also,
Good
I hope I'm
morning.
not
My name is
yelling at
Robert
people to
Gilman,
use the door.
Gilman,
And what is your occupation, Mr. Gilman?
meteorologist,
And where did you go to school?
Northeastern University and the Pennsylvania State University, Penn State.
And what degrees did you receive from those institutions?
I received a Bachelor of Science in Earth Science and in Meteorology.
Now, following your education, where did you first go to work?
I worked at the U.S. Geological Survey while I was finishing my education. I also worked at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in Washington. I worked at AccuWeather at Penn State. And then I started my own business when I came back to the Boston area, working both in media, writing a column for the Patriot Ledger, radio, 95.9 WATD, and also providing information to municipalities about snow and ice and consulting.
Now, starting first with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, what did you do there?
I worked in the Division of Site Safety and Earthquake Analysis. That was primarily involving siting nuclear power plants.
And as far as AccuWeather Inc., what was it that you did there?
Meteorology. I worked starting out drawing maps. We drew our own maps back in those days, providing observations to meteorologists and helping
develop forecasts.
Now, you had worked, you had mentioned earlier in your testimony, you worked as a meteorologist in New York for the radio, for the Patriot Ledger and New England Weather Service. Is that correct?
New England Weather Science, that's correct.
And how long a period of time span are we talking about as far as your work as a meteorologist?
Over 45 years.
Now, if you could explain to the jury just in general terms, what is meteorology?
Well, the term is actually a shortened term of hydrometeorology, one who studies falling water things. And it's a study of the atmosphere.
Now, in your work as a meteorologist, what are the different types of data that you study and examine?
Mostly measured data such as temperature, humidity, wind, precipitation, but also sensing data with satellites that orbit the Earth and with radar that shoots electronic beams out and comes back and forms images that we can analyze.
Now, beyond the satellites and the radar, where does that other data come from?
Well, the observing stations generally are at airports, for instance, but they're also at utilities, and there are private networks. And these either automated or amateur weather observers take down data such as I just mentioned, temperature, precipitation, visibility at these different locations.
And what is your current occupation?
I just realized why they got Lally to question this guy. It's because Brennan wouldn't be able to pronounce precipitate.
Meteorologist.
And where is it that you currently work?
I work for Precision Weather Forecasting Incorporated, and I also do work to assist requests for past weather data, both for clients of ours at Precision Weather Forecasting and other requests for weather data.
And is that a company that you started yourself in conjunction with other people?
Yes, thank you. It's a company that we founded, my partner and I've been working with meteorologist Bill Guile for...
Did he just say, yes, thank you? As in, thank you for the opportunity for me to plug my business.
30 years. We're both local, and we found that we had a lot of interest together. I don't stay up 24/7. He stays up overnight a lot of times, and we work much better, on that shift kind of work during the day, answering questions of clients about snow and ice, especially. So we formed our own corporation, Massachusetts Corporation, in 2016.
And how long, even prior to the...
All right, hang on. I need to focus here for a second because that Lunar Plater is not only all over the road, but that's just... No, I'm not okay with that. I need to get past them. That's dangerous. Good God. All right, is that truck going to... Yep. And we're going left. I'm not... Oh, shit. And we're going right. And we're going left again. I'm getting away from the fucking Jeep. Sorry, I had to focus.
Corporation in 2016. How long have you been working in that capacity for the building that company?
Oh, I would say over 45 years, going back to 1979, 1980.
And what type of service does your company provide to your clients?
Precise snow and ice information. I own the website snowandice.com, and our clients depend on very local, precise snow and ice guidance. It's for safety. It's for efficiency, environmental concerns of not putting down a lot of chemicals when snow is going to change to rain, that kind of thing. So we're giving very local, precise.
I just realized who this guy's voice reminds me of. He's the guy from the background of Happy Gilmore. Jackass. When he talks normally, like when he pretends to be a judge in a sitcom and that sort of thing, I can just hear his voice. That's all I can hear, and that's all I can see is that guy's face.
Weather information to help anyone that has snow and ice management concerns.
And if you could expound upon that just a little, sir, as far as what types of data or information is it that your company provides?
Mainly precipitation timing, when snowfall might begin in a particular place, the intensity of the snow, whether it might be expected to change to ice or rain or go back to snow or ice to help with those kinds of operations.
And where does that data or information come from?
As meteorologists, we develop it ourselves. It's all in-house. We take a variety of different data from numerical modeling, guidance products, and observational information and develop the forecast specifically for the client.
And as far as your clientele is concerned, to whom are you providing this data or information?
We work for most of the towns and the city in Norfolk County. We work for the largest cities in Massachusetts, some of the largest colleges and universities and other facilities, hospitals.
And what is the purpose of you providing that information to the clientele to whom you give it to?
Again, safety, efficiency, environmental concerns, to give them the best information to do the job they need to do. And it's a difficult job, as you can imagine.
Now, at some point, sir, you asked to look at some data related to the Canton, Massachusetts area in the time frame leading up to and including January 29th, 2022.
Yes.
And what were you asked to do?
I was asked to provide a simple report of the days preceding January 29th, 2022, and a more detailed report of the early morning hours of January 29th, about estimating snowfall during that time period.
And in total, as far as that total time frame, do you recall what dates you were looking at?
I believe it was January 26th to the 29th.
And during that time frame, was there a significant storm forecast for that time period?
Oh, yes.
And what was the forecast for?
Well, the forecast for the first couple of days was dry and very cold to bitterly cold. As we got closer to the 28th and 29th, we were looking at a storm coming in from the west and strengthening along the mid-Atlantic coastline. And we issued warnings, again, 2 to 3 days ahead of time to let our clients know that this was going to be a significant winter storm.
And specifically with the storm, what was the timing associated with that forecast as far as when would the storm begin?
We expected the storm, the snowfall, and the increase in wind to begin very late Friday evening, the 28th, with
We expected the
light
snow
to
to
very
start
light
falling
snow, and then to
roughly.
increase in.
No, you stop talking. I'm talking. We expected the snow to start roughly around the same time that Elsa decided to evacuate from Arundel and just watch the flurry of the snow come through.
Intensity, especially later in the morning and through the late morning and midday of the 29th.
Now, from a scientific perspective, what is a blizzard?
A blizzard technically requires a great reduction in visibility. It doesn't even have to be snowing, either falling or blowing snow, visibility a quarter mile or less, with winds of 35 miles an hour, either sustained or frequent gusts for 3 hours or more.
Now, did this particular storm meet that criteria?
The storm did, absolutely. For Boston and much of the greater Boston area, including in Canton at the Blue Hill Observatory. However, not every spot had all of those criteria during the entire time period that the snow was falling.
Now, how significant a storm actually occurred, not taking away from your forecast, but actually occurred during that time frame?
This was the biggest January storm in history, with 27 inches of snowfall. And it snowed heavily for several hours, visibility under a quarter of a mile. And the temperature was dropping during that time, and the winds were gusting frequently to 40 and 50 miles an hour in this area.
Now, that data that you looked at from that time frame of January 26th through the 29th of 2022, what types of data specifically did you look, or actually, we'll get to specifics in a moment. What data in general terms did you look at in your analysis?
3 locations, the Blue Hill Observatory, which is the oldest continuously operating weather observatory in North America, close by, Boston, which is a first order weather station at Logan Airport, and Norwood Airport, which is a mile away. And those were the 3 locations. I was considering the surface observations from those locations, also considered other types of observational data. I mentioned the radar data, so the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration maintains a NEXRAD NOAA database. And third was the National Operational Hydrologic Remote Sensing Center, which categorizes snowfall and snow depth. So those 3 different types of data at those 3 different locations.
Now, when you talk about the Blue Hills Observatory being the oldest in the country, how old is it?
It was established by Abbott Roch, who left his family home at 5 Commonwealth Avenue in Boston and built this really strange little structure at the top of Great Blue Hill on February 1st of 1885.
And do you know how far away from 34 Fairview Road that Blue Hills Observatory is?
Yes, I do. If you don't mind me consulting my note for a moment.
We'll get to the readings report, but I'll need to know the records when he does. Do you have references? Because you
So what are you reading, Mr. Gilman?
I'm reading notes I took on measurements from Blue Hill to Fairview. And that's, may I answer the question?
Yes, yes,
I'm okay with your honor, I just wanted the record to know.
yes, that's why I asked him what he's reading.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That would be 7 miles.
And the Norwood Airport, how far again is that, or how far away again is that between Norwood Airport and 34 Fairview Road?
1 mile.
Now, these measurements that you used in your analysis, are you familiar with how those measurements are taken or how they're done at each of those 3 locations?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of how those measurements are done or how those calculations or the data is collected?
Sure. Boston, again, is a first order station. It's equipped with automated equipment. It's called ASOS, Automated Surface Observing System. And it takes measurements of temperature.
I like ASOS. They got good clothing and at a cheap price too. The wife really likes it.
Visibility, wind, humidity at very frequent intervals throughout the 24-hour day. It also collects precipitation, which isn't easy if you think of Logan Airport being out in the harbor and trying to collect every raindrop in that environment. But they have a very sophisticated rain gauge system that actually does a fairly good job of collecting precipitation. Moving on to Norwood Airport, very similar. It's not as high a caliber a station as Boston is in terms of the frequency of observations or the complete set of data. Blue Hill Observatory is a special case indeed. It had been manned for most of the day for many years. The former observer is still alive and well in Hingham, Bob Skilling. For the last several years, 10, 15 years or so, it was an ASOS system that I just mentioned, but in recent years that was cut back. So there are observers that are there and they take observations when they're there and they take automated observations otherwise and take a record of that. But it's not on the, for instance, the FAA network, Federal Aviation Administration. Weather data, of course, is extremely critical to aviation, and they have a network of weather data. The Blue Hill Observatory currently is not on that network.
Now, how the data is collected or calculated at each of those respective.
I know, right, Bush? I said the other day that after listening to Brennan for so long, Lally's voice was almost like aloe vera on a sunburn.
Facilities. Is that how it's standardly collected within the industry?
Yes.
And is it a routine both in your practice and in your meteorological industry as a whole, relying on that type of data and the way it's collected?
Yes, there are standards established. I'm a member of the American Meteorological Society, the Professional Society of Meteorologists, and there are standards that are established on taking weather measurements.
Now, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilman, Your Honor, remain here just a moment. Mr. Gilman, I'm handing you a series of about 6-page documents. You recognize that?
Yes.
Back a little bit more so the jurors can see the witness, please.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that?
This is a local climatological data sheet for January 2022 for each day. And I believe there's, as I look through it, hourly reports of weather observations, especially for January 29th at Norwood Airport. And this is published by the U.S. Department of Commerce, NOAA, the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service.
And at least in part, is that the data that you were testifying about before, as far as the data that you relied upon in your study?
It's one element, that's right. And again, I put a lot of strength to this data because it is in such proximity to Canton, to the location we're concerned about.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce them as the next exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, honestly. This guy clearly enjoys what he does and he enjoys telling people about it. So, more power to him.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I return what's now been marked as Exhibit 60 to a witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Gilman, starting with snow accumulation, during the period that you were looking at, what is it that you found?
The snow began to accumulate during this winter storm And by the way, I think I can use the term nor'easter, blizzard, bombogenesis, bomb cyclone, winter storm, all referring to the storm event of the 28th, mostly the 29th. The first snowfall began late in the evening on the 28th and continued into the 29th.
Just starting with that snapshot of the evening of the 28th, how much snow accumulated on the 28th before turning the page to the 29th?
Very little, enough to track a cat, 0.2 of an inch.
Now, with reference
What
to the
the
29th,
fuck? Enough to track a cat. What, you mean because it, I presume he means because it's got to be little, like, cat paw prints in the snow. Bloody hell. I'm sorry, that caught me off guard. That was funny.
were you able to determine from that data sort of the hourly snowfall as it came down?
Yes, as the hourly precipitation data, temperature, and other information was reported, I was able to analyze it each step of the way as the storm progressed.
And from your analysis, sir, could you describe to the jury, sort of going bit by bit, what was that hourly snowfall for the 29th?
As I said in the report, it's estimated that as it began, it was on the order of 0.3 of an inch an hour on the 29th until 1 o'clock. And it stayed in that light range. And anything under an inch an hour of accumulation is termed light snowfall. So that by 3 and 4 a.m., we were looking at 3, 4, 5/10 of an inch an hour. There started to be an increase more noticeable in the intensity by 5 a.m. with another inch, and then by 6 a.m. with another 1.2 inches.
If I could stop you there just for one moment, Mr. Newman. So from the time period from when the storm began on the 28th to the time period of 6 a.m. on the 29th, how much in total snowfall had accumulated at that point?
I believe that was, do my arithmetic, 3.9 inches up to 6 a.m.
And I'm sorry, sir, if you could continue now going forward from 6 a.m. on the 29th.
Then we started getting into a more moderate snowfall. And again, that's an inch an hour more. So that by 7 o'clock it was another 1.5 inches. By 8 o'clock, another inch 0.1. And then by 9 and 10 o'clock, it was getting to be moderate to heavy snowfall based on the radar returns and X-rad radar information, based on the visibility reduction, based on the amount of precipitation that was melted in the rain gauges, based on other reports from cooperative observers. So that's on the order of 1.5 inches an hour of intensity. And that continued through the middle of the day, rapidly accumulating on the ground. And it accumulated at even 2 inches an hour by the early afternoon before it started to wind down in intensity, as these types of storms always do. By 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, it was back down to light snowfall of 0.5 inch to 0.2 of an inch. And the snowfall accumulation had ended by 10 o'clock at night.
If I could take you back just a little bit to right before it turns from the moderate 1.5 inches per hour to about the lighter snow. About how much snow had accumulated at that point? Around 6 p.m. or so.
Around 6 p.m.?
Yes.
Well, again, I'm just going to do the arithmetic of subtracting the snowfall after 6 p.m., which was 1.3 inches from the total, which was 23.8. Do that arithmetic. 23.8 was the total snowfall, and 1.3, 22.5 inches.
So that's 22.5 inches, just short of 22, excuse me, just short of 22.5 inches by 6 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what was the total snow accumulation from the storm in its entirety again?
23.8 inches.
So just short of 2 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. The biggest snowstorm in January in our history.
Now, sir, have you prepared some visual aids to assist the jury with the snow accumulation?
Yes.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
This dude was so excited when this happened. Biggest January snowstorm ever. It's history in the making. He would have been so excited.
Mr. Gentleman, showing you 3 documents. Just look at those. Look up when you finish.
Where's my Amazon package arrived today?
Yes, I've seen these, yeah.
And what do you recognize each of those 3?
The first one is a storm warning report that was sent to our clients in this area regarding the upcoming snowfall, winter storm. And we began sending this type of a report, as I said, 3 days prior. This was one of the last ones that was sent as the storm was getting underway in this area. So this was sent by my colleague, my partner, Bill Guile, at 8 o'clock that Friday evening. And it's a detail of when the snow is going to start, when the first inch will be on the ground,
Bill Guile, the snow guy.
the total snowfall, the duration of the storm, and what's going to happen after the storm, which is also critical for our clients to know how to clean it up and what kind of post-storm conditions as far as temperature and other things to consider. So that's the heading of the form. Then we get into this detailed 6-hour time block series. And of course, that begins at 6 p.m. to midnight since this was issued at 8 p.m. And we talk about the weather conditions and how much, if any, snowfall.
I don't mean to interject, but just you recognize what's on that, and that is a forecast that you sent out, correct?
Yes. Well, our company sent out. My partner, Bill Guile, actually sent it.
And the last 2 sheets that you have before you, what are those?
These are images.
Wait, this was after the body was moved. I thought he was talking about on the 29th in the lead up to when he was found. I thought this was 6 to 8 p.m. the day before. Shit, did I miss something? Damn it. The snowstorm was huge!
Taken from one of those 3 sets I talked about, the the data set from NOAA, the National Operational Hydrologic Remote Sensing Center. And it's a image of snow depth, or snow on the ground at 2 times on January 29th. The first time is 1 a.m. and the second time is 7 a.m. And it's a map of Greater Boston down to the South Shore into northwestern Rhode Island.
Can I go, John?
Yes.
I'm going to introduce the minutes of next week.
No objection, Your Honor.
Great, thank you.
You and me both, Jen. You're all good.
61, 62, 63.
And again, Your Honor, may I return those to the witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Gilman, what is the difference between a forecast versus a report of actual conditions or weather measurables?
As defined, a forecast is your best estimate based on science and data available of how the future is going to play out in terms of weather, the amount of snowfall, the temperature, the observed data. And I often make the distinction between soup and sandwich. Weather and forecast always seem to go together, but there actually is weather, and that's separate from what the forecast is. And there's always some small distinction. Lately, we've been getting pretty good at getting accurate weather forecasting done, but it is the actual weather that's measured. How much snow is on the ground, how much snow fell, what the wind speed was during any given period,
one's before it happens,
temperature,
one's after, one's a forecast,
those kind of
and one's
elements
what
that actually occurred.
How is that difficult
Your
to
Honor, with court's
understand?
permission, may I publish to the jury on the screen a copy of the forecasting document?
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. Thank you. And Mr. Gilman, what's up on the screen? Is that what you have before you as the forecasting document that's now been marked as an exhibit?
Yes.
And if you could, directing the jury's attention from left to right, as far as the columns go, if you could walk the jury through sort of what we're looking at in this particular aid.
Sure. So below the heading, I think I defined the heading just before, we have these 6-hour time periods. So the columns are the day, in this case, today being Friday in this forecast, the weather, the amount in inches, that would be of snowfall, the temperature, that's the air temperature, and air temperature is taken 5 feet above the ground in a natural surrounding. The road temperature, also in Fahrenheit, and that is the surface ground temperature, which is very important to our clients. And then we have wind, both sustained and gusts. Below that, we have special notes to amplify our message. A lot of times people don't read everything, so we try to highlight what's important or add something that wouldn't be in one of those columns.
And as far as the air temperature is concerned, as far as it being recorded, does that incorporate wind chill into that temperature, or is that something else?
A wind chill is a calculated amount or figure of heat transfer based on how human beings react to temperature. So this is the actual temperature that would be measured on a thermometer.
And thank you. And Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down. And again, on the bottom portion of this aid, again, if you could walk the jury through what we're looking for, and what we're looking at, and specifically, if you could draw their attention to the snow accumulation that's forecast in this.
Certainly. The same applies to the columns. Now we're into the tomorrow. So since this was issued at 8 p.m. on Friday, tomorrow is Saturday. And we're going through each 6-hour period and how much snowfall could be expected. You see, it starts with 3 or 4 inches and then ramps up as we get later in the morning to as much as 6 to 10 inches of snow. And you can calculate what that hourly rate might be based on the 6-hour period. We give that type of range because it's scientifically accurate. People really want to know every minute, every hour, and that's just not something that modern science can do. So we give this period to be as accurate as possible while still being extremely precise. 7 to 9 inches during the afternoon period, and then it winds down to 2 to 3 inches toward midnight.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now,
all right, I'm going to call it there. Oh, hang on. Actually, you know what? Give me a second. I'll check how far we are from the break. Oh, yeah, no, shit. Because that's not until... so what's that? 30... 38, and we're at... Yeah, so the break's still another 45 minutes away. Can't promise that I'll be able to do a stream tonight, people. It is, again, all dependent on Little Lady Overlaw'd. Keep an eye out on notifications, both on YouTube and on X. I will try and post something in the Discord if I do a makeup stream, because at some point, I got to try, at least, to make it as close to the day after live as possible. But in any event, as always, please, for the love of God, remember, you are not a piece of shit. Unlike many of the people involved in this case, you are not a piece of shit. You do have value and do contribute to society, especially for being here. Thank you to those of you that have sent through super chats. And at some point, I'm going to do a membership drive because there is entirely too much grey in chat. But as always, people, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I will catch you all shortly. Either later on tonight or tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But...
And again, on your way out, please do me the favor and hit the like and subscribe button if you're so inclined. It costs nothing. It's absolutely free. And we'll be friends forever. Bye now.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.